today we're going to be making some homemade spaghetti sauce. This spaghetti sauce is great. You can start off with a basic tomato sauce and you can add veggies and or meat to it to make it even more custom. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do it 3 different ways. We're going to start off with the basic sauce, and then we'll also show how it comes out with veggies and with meat added. So you're going to have 3 different options, 2 of which are vegetarian and vegan friendly. And one of the best things about this sauce is that it is one that has no bad ingredients to it. It's all really good stuff, no corn syrup, none of that. So check it out. Alright, so for this sauce, we're going to start off with the ingredients that you need for the basic version of the sauce. And this is what you'll use as your base for everything else. So first of all, you need some tomatoes. I like using the San Marzano tomatoes. Use the whole peeled rather than the regular ones, just for better quality. You just get better quality control when you have them as whole peeled tomatoes. And the San Marzano ones are sweeter and juicier than other tomatoes. So these are really good ones. You can find them pretty easily at Walmart. But if you really just don't care that much, you can go ahead and grab any canned tomatoes. Will probably work just fine. Next thing you're going to need is a can of tomato paste. For this amount, you're going to use about half the can. Since we're going to end up making about double this amount, so the amount you'll see here is going to be slightly different. Next thing you're going to need is half of a yellow onion. You can actually use any color onion that you like, but I like yellow. 1 whole green pepper. You're also going to need some fresh parsley. Not using a whole lot of that, but you're using some oregano. I just have some dried there. Some basil. I have some fresh that has been frozen for a while, so we're going to start with that, and if I need to, I can add some dry as well. And then some black pepper and some salt. And obviously not everything fits very well on this cutting board here. And then you're also going to need some garlic, and I like using fresh garlic cloves, although these ones have actually been frozen, but they're going to work great. And then this is the last ingredient for the main sauce that is really technically optional, and that is some white sugar. Don't use a ton of it, but if you like your sauce sweeter, like if you're a fan of Prego and that sort of thing, and you just don't want the corn syrup, you can use some regular white sugar, and that adds some nice sweetness to it. So with that all being said, let's also cover what it is that we're going to need additionally if you want to make a veggie sauce. Alright, so to make the veggie sauce, you're basically just going to add a couple extra ingredients that you didn't already have in the basic sauce. One of those is some Bella mushrooms, and you can technically use canned ones, jarred ones, they should work just fine. I like using fresh Bella mushrooms. They don't produce quite as much water, and so they're a little better. Just slice those up. I typically will use about 8 ounces per recipe. And then in addition to that, also add a full can drained of black olives. Now, I really recommend having the whole black olives. You can use sliced if you prefer, but the nice thing about the whole black olives is that when they get cooked, the sauce goes inside them, and then when you take a bite, you just get a nice bite of sauce in with each one of these. But these are some optional ingredients. This is perfect for if you want to make it into a more complex veggie sauce, nice and meaty. You can add additional other things if you prefer, like broccoli and that sort of thing. I actually find goes really well with the red sauce. But personally, I think that these things in and of themselves all are really good. And now we're going to go into what you need to make this, what you've already done, into a meat sauce. Alright, so all you need in order to make this meat sauce, if you want to have the veggies that I already suggested, the peppers, the mushrooms, and the olives, you can definitely do that. That's what I'm going to be doing for my meat sauce. But if you don't want to put those in there, you can skip the mushrooms and the olives and still keep the peppers in there. But then you just need 1 pound of ground beef and 1 pound of Italian sausage. That's really all there is to it. It's a very simple recipe overall, but it is well worth the effort and you can make a good amount of it. If you make double the recipe, it freezes really well, and it's a great sauce that you can use without having to deal with all the terrible ingredients that we find in so many of the sauces that you buy at the store today. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started chopping stuff up and get it ready to start the basic sauce. Alright, so now all of our veggies are cut up, so this is the next most important thing we need to do here, and this is technically optional. I like my tomatoes to be very smooth. I don't like having big chunks of tomato. So if you like having chunks of tomato, you can just skip this step and then squish the tomatoes with your fingers instead. Wearing a glove, whatever works for you, but I like to have it nice and smooth, so I'm going to pour my tomatoes into a blender. Get them all pureed nicely. And once again, if you're making a single batch, just making one of the varieties of sauce here, whether you're doing just the plain sauce by itself or you're adding veggies to it, you only need 1 can of these tomatoes, but since I'm doing multiple batches at once, I'm going to do 2 whole cans of tomatoes. Get those pureed very quickly. Take a quick look at that. It looks like everything is nice and smooth, and it smells great. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and get started on actually making the sauce. Alright, so we're going to be cooking this on the stove in a 5-quart Dutch oven. It doesn't matter if you use that or not. You can use a completely different pan, obviously. I've already pre-sprayed it with some avocado oil. Just use whatever neutral oil you have available. Olive oil, obviously, is typically what you're going to want to use. I don't have any, so I'm using the avocado oil. Alright, and then as it heats up, we're going to go ahead and add our onions and peppers to the mix. And because I'm doing a larger batch, I have a full onion and a full green bell pepper. And the pan hasn't quite warmed up yet, but I probably should have let that warm up a little bit more. But we'll get those sauteing, and that's the very first thing we're going to be doing. Now you might think looking at this, oh, this is going to be a chunky regular sauce, and it will be initially, but once these have a chance to cook down quite a bit, they will definitely not be nearly as chunky as they are right now. All of this is going to reduce down nicely. We're going to be cooking the meat on a separate burner with a separate spatula. So this is the one for the meat. This is the one that I'm using for the veggies. That way there's no cross-contamination for those of you who don't want meat in your sauce. Alright, now as you can see, the veggies, the onions and the peppers have already cooked down pretty nicely. Really gotten down to about half of the amount that they were before, at least in terms of size. Now it's time to add in our garlic, basil, oregano, and parsley. So we got about 10 cloves of garlic, 1 tablespoon of parsley, 2 tablespoons of oregano, and roughly about 1 tablespoon of fresh basil. We're just going to add all those in right now and get everything sauteed until it's nice and aromatic. Let's get pretty close here, slightly off screen. We'll stir the meat up some more. Eventually we'll change back over to the meat, but for now, we kind of have to multitask. It's smelling great with the onions, peppers, oregano, basil, and garlic. Now it's time for us to add in the tomatoes. Once again, if you like to have chunks of tomatoes in yours, you can skip blending them and just pull them out of a can and squeeze them so that they break up a bit, and then they'll just break up a bit further as you mix. But right now, we've already got a great base, and we haven't even added any salt or pepper or sugar. This is already going to be really good. You could even stop with it right here and just add a little bit of salt and pepper. But obviously we're going to start with this base. We're going to get it up to a boil and then let it simmer. Now when it comes to adding salt and pepper, you really just want to add it to taste. I'm going to just kind of shake it in, doing roughly about half to 1 teaspoon. And then with the black pepper, I'm going to do about the same. The meat's getting nicely browned over here on the side. It's very close to being ready. We're going to go ahead and stir in that salt and pepper. Look at that. You know, you got some chunks of peppers and onions in there. You get little strips of basil here and there as well. But for the most part, I mean, it's got a nice thickness to it, got some good chunkiness to it, but not like chunks of tomato, because I'm not really a fan of chunks of tomato, and neither are my family. Let's give that a little taste. Once again, you are just adding this to taste, so add as much as you think it needs. The goal here is to get it to the flavor that you want it to be all on its own before you start adding the mushrooms, the olives, and if you're adding it, the meat. Get a good base, and the rest of it just adds the flavor. Looks like the meat's all done, so we're going to go ahead and turn that off. Drain that a bit before we add it in. Right now we're keeping the sauce entirely vegetarian and vegan friendly. Another quick taste test. I think the saltiness level is good. I like it more spicy than this, but I'm making it for more than just myself. So we're going to go ahead and add in our sugar. And once again, this is completely optional. For a batch this size, I use about 1/3 of a cup of sugar. It might be a little too much for some people, but my family is a fan of Prego, so we want to have that level of sweetness there. I know there are alternate ways to add the sweetness, but just not quite the same. This is still a whole lot better than high fructose corn syrup. Alright, let's get one more taste of this. Yep, that's it. That is just right. It's got a nice sweetness to it. Lots of good flavors. And at this point, we're just going to bring it up to a boil and then lower the heat and let it simmer for a bit. And at this point, we're just going to go ahead and set some aside so that we have some that's just plain by itself, so we can do a taste test with just that. And then we'll start adding in the veggies, and then after that, we'll set some of that aside and then add in some of the meat. All right, and now it's time to add the veggies. We're gonna start with one full drained can of black olives. And due to the size of the batch, we're doing a full 12.5 ounces of baby Bella mushrooms that are sliced. You don't have to do anywhere near this much, but we all love mushrooms, and it was basically I needed to use them up. So here we go. We're gonna have lots of mushrooms here, but these mushrooms and these olives are going to provide some fantastic flavor to the sauce. And of course, well, right now they're big chunks. Those mushrooms are going to shrink down quite a bit as they cook. All right, we're going to set some of this aside as well to cook separately, just so that we have some that is untainted by the meat for those who don't like meat. For everybody else, we get to have all of it in all of its glory. Alright, so now we get to the best part for all of us carnivores, and that is adding the meat to the mix. Alright, now we're going to get that all well incorporated into the sauce. And now that that's all well mixed in and beautifully chunky and everything else, we're going to go ahead and move this to a different burner and let it simmer for a while we get our pasta cooking. Hi, Future Guy here. So I just realized I completely forgot to add the tomato paste. So I'm going to do about half of this can in the big batch here, and then I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of this in each of the smaller batches for the regular sauce and the veggie sauce, and then I'm going to do the rest of the can in this big batch. So I'll add those in and stir them up, and then we'll just let it simmer a little bit longer. Alright, so it's been about 15 minutes. The sauce is all completely done and looking absolutely beautiful at this point. So now we're going to do some samples of each sauce on some pasta and give it a taste test. Reaction with our guest star.
Alright, let's see.
Guest taste tester.
Is there olives in this one too? Or?
No, that one does not have olives. That's just the red sauce with onions and peppers, and then I mean, it's the lighter version of just kind of the basic sauce.
It's really good. The texture, especially from the peppers, really makes a difference. The initial taste is kind of a little bit on the sweet side, but not like overpowering sweet. It's really good, and then it's just a really kind of mild throughout. 9 out of 10.
All right, and now the veggie loaded pasta with olives and mushrooms.
Oh, olive and mushrooms?
Yeah.
Okay, well now we're really cooking with gas. So, this is the veggies. That's good. Mushrooms, the flavor of the mushrooms really comes out, and then the olives, you have that
All right, and now the meat sauce.
Protein power. So this should be
Meat and veggies.
well. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna take this plate. Yes. Tens. This one.
The regular red sauce.
Yeah, it has like a sort of sweet sort of tanginess, and the green pepper in there is really good.
All right, and now the veggie sauce.
This one's definitely a darker color than the regular sauce.
Yeah, probably just because of the mushrooms and olives in there.
Definitely a different flavor, but really good. I mean, it's different than the regular sauce, but in a good way. I can't explain the difference. Like maybe slightly earthier, I don't know. But it's really good.
All right, and now the meat sauce.
Some of that meat. Yeah, you get a lot of the sausage. It comes through a lot in that sausage and the regular meat. But obviously, this is by far my favorite. But really good.
So this is Top Chef taste testing his own work.
All right, so we just got the basic red sauce. See, I'm a big fan of Prego, but this is so much better, especially because it's all real ingredients. There's no corn syrup or anything, and I mean, I would eat this, and I typically want meat in my sauce, so that should say something. Now the veggie sauce. Should get some of the mushroom in there, those olives, and some of the pasta, maybe. I love those mushrooms in there. So good. Just that extra flavor. I think that earthiness, that's a good way to describe it, but it's like, it just gives some extra stuff there. It's really good. Makes it a little more hefty than just a regular red sauce. All right, and now the meat sauce. Meat, get some olive and mushroom. I love being a carnivore. Seriously, you need to make this. It is so worth the effort. And you can make a lot of it, and it can go really far. You can freeze it, and it is great. Please leave a like if you liked this video, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends, and stay tuned for more recipes that, while not necessarily authentic, are always delicious. Alright, and now the meat sauce. Make sure we get some meat. Get some